Hello, my name's Kate Tully from White Light Temple. I help people to raise their vibration and remember who they really are so that they can step into their full purpose and do the work that they came here to do. I have a really amazing life story that has led me to this place now where I'm helping other people to really tap into everything that is blocking them from being all of who they are so that they can step forward and actually embody the person who they really are, and in doing that just naturally step into knowing why they were here, why they came here, and what they have to do with crystal clear clarity. So I'm going to take you back a little bit to the beginning so that you can see where I've come from and lead you through to where I am today. And it all started back when I was a little girl. I remember being 5 years old, and my mother was very spiritual. She was very psychic and very in tune with her intuition. She was also a healer. So when I was 5 years old, she would take me once a week, I think it was every Sunday night, to a healing meditation circle where I was the only child there, and I would sit in circle with maybe 15, 20 adults, and we would sit around this candle on the floor and we would meditate. And I just adopted this meditation process, and I actually really loved going because I got to hang out with all the adults and I got to stay up after my bedtime, and it was really, I found it enjoyable. I remember when I was 6 years old, my mother took me on a shamanic journey to meet my guides, and she told me that my guides are always there. I can always ask them for help, which we all can. And by the age of 7, I was actually leading meditation circles in my school, Southport State School on the Gold Coast in Australia. I was leading these meditation circles at lunchtime when all the other kids were playing. There were always about 5, 6, 7 of us who would come together under the great big oak trees. After we'd eaten our lunch, we would sit and we would meditate. And I would take them through their chakras, clearing away any negative energy in their chakras. I would take them to meet their guides, and we would do all kinds of amazing, cool stuff. I thought this was normal. I thought all children did this. Like, some children played soccer, some children did meditation. My mother was also a phenomenal healer, and her work was actually divinely inspired. She was not qualified in healing in any way, but through receiving messages was able to open a healing clinic where she had patients lined up literally out the door and down the street, waiting on the footpath for their turn to come in and see her. These were people who many of them had been to many doctors, had spent many years living with pain, and they were in a state where the doctors couldn't do anything more to help them. They would come and see my mother, and they would just rave reviews. She was in newspapers, magazines, on television, being interviewed for the gift that she was giving these people, giving them their quality of life. And I remember her talking to me about the future of medicine. So we're going back to the 70s here. She was talking to me about the future of medicine was not going to be taking a pill. The future of medicine was going to be working with light and color and sound. She was an absolutely amazing woman who taught me so much. I would go into the clinic after school on weekdays, and I would actually help her. I would sit in the waiting room and talk to the patients. I would actually help her mix up her herbal remedies. And, I was also finding myself often in there during the treatment sessions Uh, so to me, this whole healing journey and spiritual journey was just so normal. And then the worst thing that could have possibly happened happened, and that was my mother was killed in a car accident when I was 7 years old. And I went interstate to live with my father, who was a beautiful man but didn't share any of this spiritual wisdom. And I was sent off to Catholic school to be a good little girl, and very quickly I just stopped. All of the gifts that I accepted were normal. I shut them all down because they were not acceptable anymore. So that was a really difficult period, a huge transition. And as soon as I left school and left home, left school, that wisdom started coming back to me. I quickly became a qualified massage therapist and a spiritual healer, and I combined those two modalities. And from the age of 21, I was doing spiritual healing on people, and it was beautiful, and it was, just absolutely amazing. But I guess without the mentorship of my mother, I often didn't trust my gifts completely. So my intuition was very developed, and I questioned everything that was happening in the world. From the age of 20, I was very much against the medical system. Quickly, soon after that, I became very unhappy with the education system. The whole way the world was working didn't make sense to me. It was as though I was longing for this unity consciousness, and the world, I would look at it and just be in disbelief that we seem to be moving away from unity consciousness rather than toward it. So I began very early to step outside of the matrix as much as I possibly could. Moving ahead, I ended up selling everything that I owned, buying a one-way ticket with my family to the other side of the world, to start afresh in a different environment, to start out with nothing, to not be attached to anything. Pulled my daughter out of school so that we could just world school her, using the world as her classroom, really wanting to protect her from some of the things that I had seen in the education department that I was not pleased with, and knew it was my duty and responsibility to protect her from those things. Also really wanting to or needing to step out of my environment where people held me in the position where they always had held me. I needed to break free from the mold and actually come into a quiet place of solitude where I was free to go within and remember who I really was, and then adopt that new identity in a way where I felt safe while I built up that strength. In that traveling process, the three of us left with one suitcase. We went from Australia to France, and that one suitcase of clothes was stolen off the train. So we literally had the clothes on our back. We'd sold everything back home. Everything that we now had was taken, and it was a really amazing lesson in non-attachment, because It was frustrating, but at the end of the day, it just didn't matter. We had each other, we were alive, we had sunshine. Really, we realized there was nothing more that we needed. And I went through a really deep spiritual awakening in the first 2 years that I was overseas. It was much more challenging than I ever anticipated it would be on many, many levels. And what I was going through was a dark night of the soul, and I was purging all of the negativity that was trapped within my body or within my energy system. And while this wasn't necessarily a new thing for me, I had been doing personal development work, at that point for over 20 years. I really was reaching a hugely deep level, not just clearing emotional trauma from this lifetime, but clearing emotional trauma from past lifetimes that had established repetitive patterns in my life. And it was those patterns where I always felt like I was just getting ahead, and the pattern would reoccur, and I would go back to square one in so many different areas of life. So during this time of Dark Night of the Soul, there were many times I was brought to my knees. It was a very personal journey. I didn't really share what was going on with anyone. Even my husband, I didn't have the words to articulate to him what was happening. There weren't words in English to explain this purge that my body was going through. But I found one modality, and this one session of healing helped me more than the previous 20 years of work that I had done on myself. I was completely blown away. What I realized in the moment was it wouldn't matter if I worked on myself for the rest of this life. There is no way I could have achieved on my own what I've just achieved in that one session. So therefore, the next day I actually rang up and booked into the course to become a practitioner. And the modality is called Atlantean Healing. It's absolutely mind-blowing how deep it gets, how it gets to the root cause. And I had work. I'm a Reiki practitioner. I have had many energy healing sessions with some of the top people around the world from all different continents. And I have to say, this blew everything out of the water. It was just phenomenal. I also had memories at the time of being in Atlantis, being in the temples, and actually being a healer myself and healing people. And all of past life memories started to open up to me, and also my spiritual gifts. Many of the ones I'd had as a child, but many new ones became activated. And I just had this amazing connection that I'd always had, but the blocks had squashed them. And so it was an amazing awakening. And now I'm just so excited. I'm doing Atlantean healing sessions on clients, and the results are just mind-blowing. And it's just so powerful that I have to share this work with others. I have to bring this to the world and help others the way that it helped me. So I'm going to be holding this channel to show you lots of different tips and tools you can use to help you on your growth, to help you move through blocks, to help you clear away anything that's holding you back. Because when you do that, you will remember who you really are. And when you remember that, you will know that anything is possible. So lots of love and light, and I look forward to seeing you again. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.